Hey, I'll be here with Ariela from Soul Centered.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. We wanted to share with you some ideas that we just expanded upon in a podcast. You can listen to it over My Soul Centered in a few days, but for now, we'll give you a taste of, and we got lots of podcasts going on over there and much more. And we want to talk about generational healing, both tragedy and also carrying forward triumph.
Yeah, so things that we explored in our podcast. I think that one major theme was we have a lot of chaos going on in our world. We thought it was kind of over, it's just begun again. And a lot of traumas and issues are being brought up, right, by all of this chaos in our world. And this is really an opportunity for us to go deeper within. When we can't control our outside circumstances, the most important thing is to go within to start to look at the patternings and the support that we have from our wise and well ancestors. Part of that is to look at when we look at the patternings, is to start to respect and really think about what they went through and how much support we are truly being given in this kind of crazy, chaotic world.
Yeah, think of Admiral William Crowe and his words, in times like these, you can always be sure that there have always been times like these. And I just think it's so important to remember, no matter what we're going through personally or communally, societally. Right now, Russia is entering Ukraine or entered Ukraine, and a lot of good people are in harm's way, and yet we've been through these times before. We must learn those lessons. Part of those lessons is we can and we will survive. We have resilient roots. We come. This is our stock. We are the survivors of generation upon generation of struggle and trauma and tragedy, and yet here we are. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, right, as Wayne Dyer says, you're the sperm that won the race. That should be something we draw upon to get us through the storms of life.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said about the roots is really important for us to recognize that, it's so easy to look at the flowers of a tree and the leaves and the beauty of the tree, but really there's substance to that tree, and we have to look towards the roots. And when we look towards our own roots, instead of forgetting and saying, we talked about in our podcast that often when people come to us, they say, I already discussed and went through my whole childhood in therapy. Like, I don't want to go backwards. I just want to move forwards. And I always laugh because we're like that. Everybody's like that. But this is different. When you start to recognize that you come from somewhere, that there is a deep ancestral patterning and beautiful resources inside of our history, then we can get through these things. When I see clients, especially lately, I've intuited that they're almost standing on a stage behind us, rooting us on. Because why? Because they've been through it. When I do intuitive readings, I can feel the wise and well ancestors. Are they all healed? No, because we're not all healed. We die unhealed. We're not perfect human beings, and neither are our ancestors. But there's a beautiful way to start working with them. In Hebrew, we say zachor, is to remember who they are by doing some rituals around this connection to your ancestors.
And drawing upon that energy, we'll talk another time more about trauma and healing trauma, but what about triumph? My teacher, Viktor Frankl, I'm a logotherapist, father of logotherapy, says that we can turn personal tragedy into triumph. And part of the way we do that is by remembering those who did it, those who, the saying, it's easy to look down upon a giant when you're standing on her shoulders, right? Whose shoulders are we standing on? Your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents went through the World War II, went through the depression and all kinds of personal struggles and traumas. We have to draw upon that. I was working with a client, and he was struggling with something, and we started looking at his family, and not just the broken parts that you're talking about, but also the beautiful parts. And he drew upon his grandma Dora and her example. And he hadn't thought about her in 20 years. And we went back into his mind, and we really met Grandma Dora, and we talked to her, and we drew strength from her. And he left this conversation ready to face his battles because he realized he wasn't alone.
Yeah, I think the most amazing thing is that when we connect to our ancestors, whether they are your grandparents or ancestors you intuit from long, long time ago that you don't really have a lot of knowledge about, they are so ready to help us. Yes, there are patternings, and there are, a lot of what I've gathered in my client sessions is that there's a lot of survival. There's a lot of unrest. Think about the war, famine, pandemics that they've all been through. If you check in with your nervous system, I guarantee you that 9 out of 10 of us feel like our nervous systems run very wiry. Like it's hard to calm down. It's hard to rest. And I think that's the message of today's world, is like learning how to rest, because yes, part of the ancestral patterning is that they couldn't rest. If you think about the Holocaust, we've all heard stories like there was no rest. It was constant. Your nervous system was constantly on edge. Every war, every famine, every pandemic. Our job now is to intuit the patternings, and also, like you said, Grandma Dora, also the beauty in what they have to offer, because ultimately it's about you and it's about humanity and the next generations.
Right.
What do you want to move forward with? Like Baruch says, carry the fire. Like how do you want to carry your fire forward? That is your sole purpose. Your sole reason for being here is to remove the rubble and the patternings, so you remember who you are.
And I know you have to wrap up, but just one last thought on this. And that is that when somebody's grieving a loved one, what I found, I've done 500 funerals as a rabbi. And what I found is oftentimes we forget that we have to you can't replace the person, but you have to do something with the void. You have to fill the void with something proactive, or else bad things happen. We react and we fill the void with negative stuff. What can you fill the void with? A purpose. Well, you have to have a purpose bigger than the loss. And the purpose bigger than the loss is to carry that fire forward, to carry your loved one's legacy forward, to realize you are somebody's Grandma Dora. You are somebody's ancestor. Even if you don't have biological children, you're still influencing generations. They're going to be looking back at you as an example. How do you survive the loss? How do you weather this storm? How do you handle the pandemic? You're being watched. Your children, the people around you, community, generations. So filling it with that purpose, that I want to be somebody's Grandma Dora. Not sure that sounds right, but yeah.
Grandpa?
You know what I meant.
Grandpa Dora?
Okay, Grandpa.
So anyways, in conclusion, it's really about, it's remembering. In Hebrew, we say zachor. It's remembering where you came from so that you can also remember. I always use the metaphor of the oak tree, right? That little seed, that little acorn that grows into this mighty, huge oak tree. And that is your sole purpose. We all have a mission and a reason for being here. And if we're so caught up in the old beliefs and the patternings and the trauma of the things that have been handed down to us, we miss the gifts. We miss the resources that are also here for us when we kind of open our world and remember it's about you lighting up. And that's really why you're here, is to find that light.
So if you want to dig into those roots and really explore them, reach out to Ariela. She'll work with you on generational healing, carrying forward, healing the trauma and carrying forward the triumph. And I'll work with you on taking responsibility, the ability to respond to whatever storm you're going through, to move forward and become someone's Grandma Dora. That's what we're going to call it. So jump over to mysoulcentered.org. You can hear all of our podcasts. Got a lot going on. You can reach out to us. Until the next time, shalom, salam.
Namaste, everyone.
Peace.